Why do some people achieve extraordinary success while others stay stuck? It's not intelligence, it's not luck, it's not even talent. The real difference is identity, how you see yourself at the core. Right now, you might be stuck in old patterns, repeating the same struggles, and wondering why success feels out of reach. But what if I told you that you could reprogram your mind like software? That you could shift your identity right now and step into a future of unstoppable success. This isn't wishful thinking. It's science, it's strategy, and it's the key to unlocking high performance at every level. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to rewire your identity, break past limitations, and create the kind of success you've always dreamed of. So if you're ready to leave behind the old you and step into a powerful, unstoppable version of yourself, let's dive in. Step 1, your identity defines your reality. The way you see yourself at the core, your identity determines every decision you make, every action you take, and ultimately the life you create. It acts as a psychological filter, shaping your perceptions, behaviors, and even the opportunities you recognize or ignore. If deep down you see yourself as someone who struggles, someone who isn't capable of greatness, or someone who just isn't meant to succeed, then your mind will subconsciously reinforce that belief. You'll hesitate when opportunities arise, procrastinate on taking action, and settle for less than you deserve, not because you're incapable, but because your identity is dictating your behavior. Identity is like an internal thermostat. If you set the thermostat in a room to 70 degrees, it doesn't matter if the temperature temporarily rises to 80 or drops to 60. The system will adjust itself back to 70. This is exactly how identity works. If someone identifies as an average person and suddenly they experience a surge of success, they'll unconsciously self-sabotage to return to their internal set point. This is why people who win the lottery often lose it all within a few years, or why someone who achieves a breakthrough in their fitness journey might find themselves back at square one. Their external results changed, but their internal identity never shifted, so their mind and behavior worked to pull them back to what felt familiar. On the flip side, if someone identifies as a winner, as someone who is disciplined, resilient, and capable, then even when they face setbacks, they find a way to rise again. Their identity demands a certain standard of behavior, and they will do whatever it takes to stay congruent with it. This is why you see top performers in any field bounce back from failure faster than the average person. They don't see failure as a reflection of who they are. They see it as a challenge to overcome. Their identity doesn't allow them to accept mediocrity. Most people try to change their lives by focusing on behavior. They think, I need to work harder, be more disciplined, stay motivated. But discipline and motivation are temporary unless they align with your core identity. If someone sees themselves as lazy, no amount of productivity hacks will create lasting change. If someone identifies as a smoker, no amount of willpower will keep them from lighting up a cigarette in moments of stress. The key to permanent transformation is not just changing what you do, but changing who you believe you are. Your identity is shaped by your past experiences, the labels you've accepted, and the beliefs you've reinforced over time. If you've repeatedly failed at something, your mind starts to create an identity around that failure. I'm just not good at this. If you grew up in an environment where success wasn't modeled, you may have unconsciously adopted the identity of someone who doesn't expect much from life. But just as identity is formed, it can also be reprogrammed. You can consciously choose to redefine who you are, and when you do, your actions and results will naturally follow. Think about the most successful people you know. They don't just do things differently, they are different. A world-class athlete doesn't just work out because they have to. They train because it's who they are. A millionaire entrepreneur doesn't just invest and build businesses because they want money. They do it because their identity is tied to innovation, problem solving, and leadership. They don't have to force themselves to take action. Their actions are automatic because they align with their core identity. The key is recognizing that identity isn't fixed. You don't have to remain trapped by old stories or past failures. You can choose a new identity and reinforce it through your actions, your language, and the way you carry yourself every single day. If you start to see yourself as a high performer, as someone who follows through, as someone who creates opportunities instead of waiting for them, your mind will work to make that identity a reality. The shift doesn't happen overnight, but the moment you decide to redefine yourself, you start moving in a new direction. Step 2, rewiring your beliefs. Beliefs are the invisible forces shaping your reality. They dictate what you attempt, what you avoid, how you respond to challenges, and even what you think you deserve. From the moment we're born, we start absorbing beliefs from our parents, teachers, society, and personal experiences. Some of these beliefs empower us, but many of them act as invisible walls, limiting what we think is possible. The problem is, most people don't question these beliefs, they accept them as facts. They assume that if they've always struggled with money, relationships, or success, then that's just who they are. But the truth is, these beliefs are just mental programs, and like any program, they can be rewritten. Every belief starts as a thought that is repeated and reinforced. Imagine a child who tries to speak up in class but is laughed at. If that experience is painful enough, the child may start to believe, I'm not good at speaking in front of people. If similar situations happen again, maybe a teacher dismisses their answer or a friend makes fun of their ideas, eventually becomes part of their identity. I'm shy, I'm not a good communicator. Now, as an adult, even when an opportunity arises to lead a meeting, give a presentation, or speak up in a group, they automatically hesitate. They don't question why, they just know that public speaking isn't for them. But in reality, the only thing stopping them is a belief they unknowingly adopted years ago. This is how most limiting beliefs are formed. They don't appear overnight. They are built through experiences and repetition. A person who has repeatedly failed at dieting might start to believe, I have no willpower, and so every future attempt at weight loss is sabotaged by this deeply ingrained identity. Someone who grew up hearing their parents argue about money might develop the belief that money causes problems, leading them to unconsciously repel financial success, even if they don't realize it. The brain craves consistency, and once a belief is established, it filters reality in a way that reinforces that belief. This is why two people can experience the same event but interpret it completely differently, because their beliefs shape what they see and how they process information. Rewiring your beliefs starts with awareness. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. The first step is identifying the beliefs that are running your life. Ask yourself, what do I believe about success? What do I believe about money? What do I believe about relationships? What do I believe about my own capability? If any of your answers include words like always or never, I always mess things up, I'll never be good with money, success is only for lucky people, that's a sign of a deep-seated limiting belief. These beliefs feel like truths because they've been repeated so many times, but in reality they are just assumptions based on past experiences. The key is realizing that just because something has been true in the past doesn't mean it has to be true in the future. Once you identify a limiting belief, the next step is challenging it. Where did this belief come from? Is it based on facts, or is it just something I assume because of a few past experiences? Are there examples of people who have overcome similar situations and succeeded? Your mind naturally looks for evidence to support your beliefs, but when you start questioning them, you begin to create doubt. That doubt is powerful. It cracks the foundation of the belief, making space for a new one to take its place. To fully rewire a belief, you must replace it with an empowering one. The best way to do this is through consistent reinforcement. Start by stating the new belief as if it's already true. Instead of I'm bad with money, say I am learning to master my finances. Instead of I'm not a leader, say I am developing powerful leadership skills. Instead of I'll never be successful, say I have everything I need to create success. But words alone aren't enough. Your actions must reinforce the new belief. If you want to believe you are disciplined, start acting with discipline, even in small ways. If you want to believe you are confident, start carrying yourself with confidence, even before you feel it. Every time you act in alignment with your new belief, you strengthen it. Over time, it becomes your new default way of thinking, just as the old limiting belief once was. Your beliefs determine your reality, but they are not permanent. They are mental patterns that can be rewritten, reshaped, and reprogrammed. The moment you decide to change what you believe about yourself and the world, you begin to change what is possible for you. Step 3, emotional mastery fuels high performance. Emotions are the driving force behind every decision, every action, and ultimately every result in life. Whether you realize it or not, your emotions dictate the way you perform in business, relationships, health, and every other area of your life. The most successful people in the world are not just those who have the most intelligence, talent, or resources. They are the ones who have mastered their emotions and can control their mental and physiological state at will. Without emotional mastery, even the most skilled individuals can sabotage their potential. But with it, even someone with average skills can rise to extraordinary levels of success. Most people operate under the illusion that emotions happen to them. They wake up feeling unmotivated and assume they need to wait for motivation to strike before they take actions. They experience fear and assume they must shrink back instead of pushing forward. They get frustrated and assume that frustration must dictate their behavior. But the truth is, emotions are not random events. We create them based on our focus, our physiology, and the meaning we assign to situations. And once you understand this, you gain the power to shift your emotions in real time, allowing you to perform at your highest level no matter what is happening around you. One of the biggest misconceptions about high performers is that they are always motivated. This is not true. What separates them from the average person is not that they feel motivated all the time, but that they have trained themselves to take action despite how they feel. They don't allow emotions like doubt, frustration, or fear to control them. Instead, they use specific tools to shift their emotional state and generate the feelings they need to succeed. The first and most immediate way to control your emotions is through physiology. Your body and mind are deeply connected, and the way you move, breathe, and hold yourself directly affects your emotional state. Think about a time when you felt confident and powerful. How are you standing? How are you breathing? How did you move? Now compare that to a time when you felt defeated or unsure of yourself. The difference in posture, breathing, and facial expression is massive. The fastest way to shift your emotional state is to shift your physiology. High performers know this instinctively. That's why they stand tall, breathe deeply, and move with energy. They don't slump, hesitate, or let their body reflect weakness because they know that how they use their body determines how they feel. The second way to master emotions is by controlling focus. Whatever you consistently focus on, you feel. If you focus on problems, you feel overwhelmed. If you focus on possibilities, you feel empowered. The average person allows their focus to be dictated by their environment. If something goes wrong, they dwell on it. If someone criticizes them, they replay it in their mind. But high performers take control of their focus. They train themselves to direct their thoughts towards solutions instead of problems, gratitude instead of frustration, and opportunity instead of fear. By shifting focus, they shift their emotions. And by shifting their emotions, they take different actions and create different results. The third factor in emotional mastery is meaning. Nothing in life has inherent meaning, only the meaning we assign to it. Two people can experience the same event and interpret it completely differently based on their beliefs and perspectives. One person loses their job and sees it as a devastating failure, while another person loses their job and sees it as the best opportunity to start something new. The event is the same, but the meaning is different, and that meaning determines the emotional response. High performers are masters at reframing meaning. When they fail, they don't see it as proof of incompetence. They see it as a lesson and a stepping stone. When they face challenges, they don't see them as obstacles. They see them as opportunities to grow stronger. Because they control their meaning, they control their emotions, and because they control their emotions, they stay in a peak state of performance. Emotional mastery is not about suppressing emotions. It's about directing them. It's about recognizing when fear, doubt, or frustration arise and having the tools to shift back into a powerful state. It's about conditioning yourself to operate at your highest level, regardless of external circumstances. When you master your emotions, you master your ability to take consistent, effective action. And in a world where most people are controlled by how they feel in the moment, this single skill is what separates the best from the rest. Step 4, the power of environment and habits. Your environment and your habits are the invisible forces shaping your success or failure. Most people believe that achieving high performance is purely about willpower, discipline, or intelligence, but the truth is that even the strongest willed individuals are shaped by the environments they immerse themselves in and the habits they repeat daily. The human brain is constantly adapting to its surroundings, and whether you realize it or not, the people you interact with, the physical space you occupy, the information you consume, and the routines you follow all influence your thoughts, emotions, and behaviors on a deep level. If you want to transform your life, one of the most powerful things you can do is consciously design an environment and a set of habits that make success inevitable. Your environment is more than just the physical space you live in. It's the collective influence of everything around you. It includes the people you spend the most time with, the conversations you have, the books and media you consume, the expectations placed upon you daily. If you're constantly surrounded by negativity, small thinking, and mediocrity, it becomes almost impossible to rise above it. Not because you're incapable, but because your subconscious mind is always adapting to fit into the environment you are exposed to. On the other hand, if you place yourself in an environment where success, growth, and high standards are the norm, you will naturally elevate your thinking and behavior to match that level. Consider the impact of peer influence. Studies have shown that people tend to adopt the habits, income levels, and even the weight of the people they associate with the most. If you spend time with people who complain, procrastinate, and settle for less, you will unconsciously begin mirroring those behaviors. But if you surround yourself with people who are driven, disciplined, and constantly striving for more, you will start to mirror their behaviors instead. This is why high performers are intentional about who they associate with. They seek out mentors, colleagues, and communities that challenge them to think bigger and act bolder. Your physical environment also plays a significant role in shaping your behaviors. If your home or workspace is cluttered, disorganized, or full of distractions, your mind will reflect that chaos. You may struggle with focus, procrastinate on important tasks, or feel overwhelmed without even realizing that your surroundings are influencing your mental state. On the other hand, if your environment is designed to promote productivity, if your workspace is clean, your goals are visible, and your distractions are minimized, your ability to stay focused and take action increases dramatically. Simple changes like placing your workout clothes next to your bed to encourage exercise, or keeping a book on personal development by your nightstand instead of your phone can rewire your habits without relying on willpower. Habits are the automated behaviors that run your life. They are the small repeated actions that over time determine your results. The challenge is that most people don't consciously design their habits. They fall into routines based on convenience, social norms, or past conditioning. If you wake up and immediately check your phone, Hitting snooze multiple times, skipping breakfast, and reacting to emails, you're starting your day in a reactive state rather than a proactive one. That habit, seemingly small, creates a ripple effect that affects your entire day's performance. But if you establish a morning routine that includes exercise, goal setting, and focusing your mind on gratitude or affirmations, you start your day with momentum and a sense of control. The key to habit formation is understanding that habits are not about motivation, they are about systems. If you rely on motivation to go to the gym, read books, or work on your goals, you will inevitably fail because motivation fluctuates. But if you build a system where these actions become automatic, you remove the need for willpower. High performers don't just hope they'll be productive, they create systems that make productivity the default. They set up their environment so that making the right choice is easier than making the wrong one. They schedule their workouts instead of waiting to feel like exercising. They create accountability by surrounding themselves with people who push them forward. The power of environment and habits lies in their compounding effect. A single positive habit may not seem like it makes a difference in a day, but over weeks, months, and years, it transforms your identity. Likewise, a single negative habit may not seem harmful in the moment, but its cumulative impact can be devastating. The person who chooses to read for 20 minutes a day instead of scrolling social media will, over time, develop a vastly different mindset than the person who mindlessly consumes entertainment. The person who commits to small daily improvements will eventually outperform the person who takes sporadic bursts of action, followed by long periods of inaction. The challenge is that most people resist changing their environment or habits because they are comfortable. Change requires effort, and the brain naturally seeks to conserve energy by sticking to familiar routines. But the reality is, if your environment and habits are not designed for success, you will always feel like you are fighting an uphill battle. The real breakthrough happens when you stop relying on discipline alone and instead engineer an environment and a set of habits that pull you toward your goals effortlessly. Step 5, act as if to create change. The way you act determines the way you feel, and the way you feel determines what you believe is possible. Most people wait until they feel confident before they take bold action. Wait until they feel ready before they pursue their dreams, and wait until external circumstances change before they commit to transformation. But the truth is, if you wait to feel ready, you'll be waiting forever. The fastest way to create real change in your life is to act as if you are already the person you want to become. By changing your behavior first, you force your mind and emotions to catch up, reprogramming your identity in the process. This principle is based on one of the most powerful aspects of human psychology, the fact that we don't just think ourselves into a new way of acting, we act ourselves into a new way of thinking. If you act like a confident person, even when you don't feel confident, your brain starts to adjust to that new behavior. If you make decisions like a successful entrepreneur, even before you have the bank account to match, you begin aligning yourself with that reality. If you carry yourself with discipline, even before it feels natural, you start to become disciplined. This isn't about faking it or pretending to be something you're not. It's about stepping into the mindset and behaviors of the person you are capable of being and allowing that to reshape your identity. Your brain is constantly seeking congruence between your actions and your self-amendment. If you see yourself as a procrastinator, your behaviors will reflect that identity. You'll hesitate, put things off, and find ways to avoid discomfort. But the moment you start acting decisively, taking action without overthinking, and moving with purpose, your brain has no choice but to update its internal narrative. It starts to say, maybe I am the kind of person who gets things done. That shift in identity leads to a shift in emotions, and soon what once felt unnatural becomes second nature. One of the best examples of this principle in action is the way people behave when they take on a new role. Think about someone who gets promoted to a leadership position. At first, they might feel like an imposter, questioning whether they're really cut out for the job, but as they start making decisions, leading meetings, and taking responsibility, they begin to feel like a leader. Their identity starts to shift, not because they were born with leadership skills, but because they stepped into the role and acted as if they were already capable. Over time, they no longer have to think about it. It becomes who they are. This applies to every area of life. If you want to be more disciplined, don't wait until you feel disciplined. Start acting as if you already are. Set a schedule, stick to it, and make decisions based on what a highly disciplined person would do. If you want to be more confident, don't wait for confidence to magically appear. Start acting as if you're already confident. Speak up in conversation, stand tall, make eye contact, and move with certainty. If you want to be financially successful, don't wait until you have wealth to start behaving like someone who values financial growth. Educate yourself. Make smart financial choices, and approach opportunities with the mindset of someone who creates abundance. The challenge for most people is that they assume they need to feel a certain way before they take action, but emotions follow actions, not the other way around. If you force yourself to smile, even when you're feeling down, your brain picks up on that physical signal and starts releasing chemicals associated with happiness. If you start moving with energy and purpose, even when you feel sluggish, your body responds by increasing energy levels. The same principle applies to success, confidence, and high performance. You don't wait for these things to come to you. You create them by stepping into the behaviors first. This approach is especially powerful because it bypasses limiting beliefs. When you tell yourself, I'm not good at public speaking, your mind looks for evidence to support that belief. But if you start acting like a great speaker, preparing, practicing, and delivering with confidence, you don't give your mind a chance to argue. Your actions speak louder than your limiting thoughts. And eventually, your thoughts have no choice but to change. Another reason why acting as if is so effective is that it forces you to take responsibility for your transformation. Many people wait for external circumstances to change before they commit to new behaviors. They say things like, once I have more money, I'll start investing, or once I get in shape, I'll feel confident enough to go to the gym regularly. But this mindset keeps them stuck because they're waiting for permission from their environment. High performers don't wait. They create the conditions they want by behaving in alignment with their desired future, even before it seems justified. The key is consistency. Acting as if isn't about a one-time performance. It's about repeatedly showing up as the person you aspire to be until it becomes your new reality. Every time you act in alignment with your ideal self, you reinforce that identity. The more you do it, the less it feels like a stretch. And eventually it becomes second nature. The transformation isn't instant, but it's inevitable for those who commit to the process. Step 6, massive action plus identity alignment equals transformation. Transformation doesn't happen by chance. It happens when massive action is aligned with a powerful identity shift. Most people set goals, create plans, and even take some action, but they struggle to see lasting change because their identity is still rooted in their old patterns. They may push themselves for a while, but if their subconscious mind still sees them as the same person they were before, they will eventually sabotage their progress and revert to their old ways. True transformation occurs when both elements, massive action and identity alignment, work together. Without action, identity is just an idea. Without identity alignment, action is unsustainable. But when you combine the two, you create a powerful force that reshapes your reality. Massive action is the fuel for change. It means going all in, pushing beyond comfort, and taking relentless steps toward your goal. Most people underestimate how much action is actually required to create lasting transformation. They take small, hesitant steps and then wonder why they're not getting massive results. But if you study the most successful people in any field, entrepreneurs, athletes, artists, leaders, you'll find one common trait. They take action at a level that most people would consider extreme. They don't dip their toes in the water. They create momentum by sheer force of effort. But action alone isn't enough. This is where most people get stuck. They hustle, they grind, they push themselves forward, but deep down, they still see themselves as the person they were before. If you take massive action but still identify as someone who struggles, procrastinates, or isn't worthy of success, your subconscious mind will always find a way to pull you back. This is why so many people experience temporary success only to fall back into their old habits. They lose weight but then gain it back. They make more money but then find themselves back in financial struggles. They improve their relationships but then sabotage them. The problem isn't the action, it's the misalignment between their actions and their identity. Identity is the foundation of transformation. It dictates what you believe is possible, what you believe you deserve, and what behaviors feel natural to you. If you try to take action that contradicts your identity, you will always experience resistance. But if you align your identity with a version of yourself that already embodies success, taking massive action becomes effortless. You simply are disciplined. You don't have to push yourself to stay consistent. You just act in alignment with the person you've become. This is why elite performers don't just work on their habits, they work on their identity. They don't just say, I'm going to work out more. They say, I am an athlete. They don't just say, I'm going to try to be more confident. They say, I am a leader. They don't just set financial goals. They shift their identity to become someone who creates wealth effortlessly. Once identity is in place, the behaviors that align with that identity become automatic. Think about someone who wants to become a millionaire. If they still see themselves as someone who struggles financially, they might work harder, take on side hustles, and try to save more, but deep down, they still believe that wealth is difficult for them. So even if they make more money, they will likely find ways to lose it, spend it recklessly, or sabotage their progress because their identity hasn't caught up. But if they shift their identity to match their goal, if they truly see themselves as someone who is financially intelligent, abundant, and capable of managing and multiplying wealth, then the actions they take will reinforce that identity instead of contradicting it. The same applies to health. A person who struggles with fitness might start going to the gym, eating better, and working with a trainer, but if their identity is still that of someone who hates working out or isn't naturally fit, they will always feel like they are forcing themselves to do something unnatural. The effort will feel like a battle, and eventually they will fall back into their old habits. But if they shift their identity to see themselves as an athlete, as someone who enjoys movement, as someone who values their body, then working out is no longer something they have to do. It's simply what they do because it's who they are. Massive action without identity alignment creates burnout. Identity alignment without massive action creates delusion. But when you put the two together, you create unstoppable momentum. Every action reinforces your new identity, and every shift in identity fuels more action. You stop fighting against old habits because they no longer define you. Instead, you step into a new version of yourself, one where success is not just something you achieve, it's something you embody. At the end of the day, transformation isn't just about knowledge, it's about action. It's about making the decision right now that you will no longer settle for anything less than your full potential. You are not a prisoner of your past. You are not limited by your old beliefs, your environment, or your circumstances. The power to change radically, permanently, is already within you. It starts with shifting your identity, rewiring your beliefs, mastering your emotions, and surrounding yourself with an environment and habits that make success inevitable. But most importantly, it requires massive action. Not tomorrow, not when you feel ready, now, because the longer you wait, the deeper those old patterns become ingrained. The longer you hesitate, the more your current identity tightens its grip. The moment you decide to act as if you are already the person you're meant to be, you start closing the gap between where you are and where you want to be. This is your moment. The old version of you, it got you this far, but it won't take you to the next level. That next level demands more. It demands a new standard, a new mindset, and a new level of intensity. So stop waiting. Step up. Take control. And reprogram yourself for the success, the high performance, and the life you were meant to live.